Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 14. I'm calling it 14. I think basketball is its own thing. So this is episode 14 of the Mousetrap podcast. I am Carter Thweet, joined as always by my co-host Isaac Hardy.
Yo, yo, yo.
It's an early morning episode, but as per my last apology, we are going to try and keep the energy up for you guys and discuss this wonderful league that we all have. If we could look at today's agenda, it is a short agenda. It is the agenda we have for every Dynasty episode, recap, power rankings, and then picks. Isaac, anything before we jump in?
No, I just look forward to talking about our power rankings. So we had maybe an unexciting week, if that makes sense. I feel like a lot of expected wins, and yeah, at the same time, I feel like we learned a lot about different teams.
Yeah, I actually wanted to take. I know we'll take more time on the power rankings because we always do, but I think this could be a week where we take more time than usual on the recap because there were not some unexpected wins like you said, but just some games that were crazy and crazy
Mhm.
close. If we could go to the
Yeah,
week 7 recap here. Um, we're starting with you. Team Jaden McDaniels takes down Team Evan Paul John. This one was not particularly close, but maybe a little more nerve-wracking than you would have anticipated.
yeah, this was crazy. So Evan put up the second most points this week. So this is the second time this season I beat the second highest point score. The first was the first week against TJ, and he had me shaking in my boots a little bit because I had like Gibbs and JSN and Baker playing Monday night, and then maybe like one guy playing Sunday night. So after the second slate of games, Evan had 145 points, which was like 50 more than he was projected. And I had like 40 points. So I was still projected to win. Like there's never a point where I wasn't. But any guy lays an egg, boom, all of a sudden I lose. Instead, Gibbs goes crazy, JSN goes crazy, and I blow him out by 26. But it really wasn't until about 7:30 p.m. Monday night that I felt like, okay, I'm going to win this game.
Yeah, it was crazy when it does the weekly recap of the league and seeing Evans second on the podium. Great performance. Personally, I'm just happy to see Chris Olave playing well for him because people thought Olave's career might be done. He's had like 4 concussions. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like teams always underperform, and your team did exactly what it was supposed to do. So shout out, 171 points is pretty crazy.
Yeah, then we had TJ squeaking it out versus Drake. I like Drake's text. Interesting here. It says he had a 1% chance to win, even though the games would have been over whenever I took these pictures. But his text about Nick Chubb, he said he was going to bed. Surely Nick Chubb will get him the 3 points he needs. And of course, he did not. This one is just got to be really tough for Drake. I think he made some of those all-in moves a few weeks ago, and I believe he's on a three-game losing streak since then. QJ's been hurt. Justin Jefferson's been on bye. Like he's had excuses, but definitely a guy who pictures himself at the top of the league and not fighting to. I don't think he's really worried about making the playoffs, but he doesn't want to run into me. He doesn't want to run into Logan in the first round. And so I think he'd rather be a higher seed there. And then, of course, TJ catching a win. Um, Certainly not what he was hoping for either.
It's crazy because I remember just a couple weeks ago, TJ lost to Evan, and we said it was, worst loss of the year. The Cardinals losing to the Titans, and now it feels like losing to TJ is that. It's not that bad because TJ's team did fine. He put up 116. But we're going to talk about him in power rankings. But TJ's roster is just barren, and I think that's the way he wants it. He wants to be, tanking and accumulating assets. So. This is just an insane result all around. Gino has been bad, but not this bad. He put up 2 points. And then, like you said, I mean, the Nick Chubb thing is just brutal. He hasn't been that bad all season. I don't think you want Nick Chubb starting at this point, but I think you can hope for more than 2.1. And that is just a brutal way to lose when you literally need 3 points from him and you can't get it.
Yeah. And then we had Logan just continuing to dominate, 136 points effectively against Nixon. Kind of a big blow at the Nixon, a team we have had high in our power rankings, but Logan just continues to showcase just how good his team is with a pretty dominant performance there. And it's kind of the tale as old as time. I feel like Logan never has like a guy that I'm like, oh my gosh, this dude dropped 35. Like that's crazy. It's always like six guys dropping 20. It's just like consistent overperforming above the expected, which is scary and impressive.
Yeah, nothing crazy from this game, but I do just want to point out, I think it's funny that, and like it's not even his fault. Tucker Kraft had 19, but Logan, I feel like every week he puts in the wrong tight end, which I just think is funny. This week, Pat Fryermuth had 30 because of course he did. And then for Nixon, I mean, when Josh Allen is out, Nixon's team is just going to be much, much worse. This wouldn't have won him the game. He could have put in Jacoby Brissett, but he puts in Bill Merritt at the super flex. Quarterback is his strength. When he doesn't have both those guys, he's going to be hard pressed to win games, I think.
Yeah. And then we had Austin literally just squeaking out a win by less than 3/10 of a point against Charlie. He had Devontae Smith go off. Charlie had Jonathan Taylor go off. Outside of that, both their teams just kind of sucked for the most part. This is just an interesting one, I think, in terms of like league landscape. Like Charlie just traded for Puka. He's got JT. Like he was a guy I kind of had my eye on, like a late season run into the playoffs. Like certainly a guy I don't want to catch in the 8 seed slot. Whereas Austin's, traded away Lamar, kind of uh, trying to walk like a line between tanking and not tanking, and going to try and make that decision later. And definitely the type of team I'd want to run into in the first round. So I just think this is just an interesting showcase. He's got the same record as Drake. He's definitely going to have to drop some games to get out of the playoffs, whereas Charlie is definitely going to have to stack up some wins if he wants to make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, this is brutal for Charlie to lose in this way and to be 1-6. Like he needs all the wins he can get at this point. Um, and I mean, just some of the performances. I mean, Jamison Williams on Monday night scoring no points, and Charlie loses by point 28. Like he needed Jamison Williams to catch a pass for -7 yards, and he couldn't do it. Charlie, I think, has some big time things to address because a big reason he lost this game is because Tua scored 1 point, and I don't think that's going to get much better anytime soon. But this is a brutal way to lose. Good for Austin. We're going to talk in power rankings. I'm a little higher on Austin than you are. I think he's got some solid guys, and good to see this Devontae Smith performance. Really, the Eagles' offense as a whole looked decent. Jalen Hurts was throwing it around a little bit, but yeah, brutal loss to take for Charlie here.
Yeah, and then Grant beats Tucker soundly. That's more just comment on how poor Tucker's team performed. And then Grant's did not, I think, a ton to say here. Grant, of course, handling being short running back with Hampton and Benson out on IR, and he's got Rasheed Rice back, who of course performed really well. Whereas Tucker is just shooting towards the bottom, trying to stack up losses, and kind of got his wish this week.
Yeah, real quick, can we go to the next slide? Because I saw something with Grant that I thought was fascinating. This is and actually the first slide before this, because I want to do this as a dramatic reveal. I was looking at Grant's game and I thought I was looking at the wrong team. Like this first six is just insane, including his QB1 here. His guys had 5, 4, 1, 9, 6, and 9, and all single digits, and I was just like. Am I looking at the wrong team? How did he win? And then you go to the next slide and you see Jamar Chase had 38 and Rashee Rice had 23. But this is just like one of the worst top six I think I've ever seen. I just wanted to give it a shout out. But then obviously, his two guys come in at the end and clean up for him. But still, I know it's Tucker. I know he's tanking, but pretty impressive to win with a bunch of these poor performances. Obviously, Grant's kind of in a weird spot right now. So I think the fact that he can still win is a little scary. I think he's going to be really, really tough down the road.
Yeah, certainly. And his quarterback slot. Well, he also had Aaron Rodgers play for him, didn't he? Who he just traded,
Uh,
but whose points he got.
Oh, maybe. Now I'm not really sure what exactly his roster was looking like here. Looking back at this matchup. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers off roster. So good catch there. I guess this is his current roster. But
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers had 24, so same amount of points as Rashee Rice. You can kind of just factor that in. Some low scoring guys for Grant, but also some guys who popped off.
And then lastly, you had a squeaker against Chitty pulling out by less than a point. Kind of a big game for Chitty. Another guy kind of like Charlie, where it's like if you want to get in the playoffs, like you gotta like the margin is shrinking real fast, and not being able to catch this win here despite a huge game from AJ Brown and Jake Ferguson is concerning, especially with the way Saquon's been looking at, it felt like, oh, he's just going to bounce back. He's going to bounce back. But we're 7 weeks into the season, and there's no sign of bouncing. So that's really concerning for Chid. He got Kittle back, who did literally nothing. Um, so good win for you, but I definitely think this is starting to get bad for Chitty.
Yeah, and on my side, I don't win this if I don't trade for Devontae Adams. So that was obviously very nice to see. CMC, I was projected to lose this game for like all of the late Sunday into Monday, and CMC puts up 39, which was just awesome. Laporta really scared me. I needed six from him, and he got six. So it was scary times. But yeah, I end up beating Shitty by 6/10 of a point. The Kittle thing is just brutal to see for him. That's
Mhm.
really, really tough.
So let's then slide here into our power rankings real quick. We've already talked about some of these teams. I'd love to actually spend because our top like six are very similar and very consistent. I feel like, at least on my side. I'd love to maybe spend a little bit more time on the bottom this week. But let's still start from the top and maybe just kind of keep in mind, kind of moving through these
Yeah,
a little bit
yeah, yeah.
quickly. So yeah, I left myself at number one. You moved me up to number one. I scored the most points this week. Uh, I don't know what else there is to say. My
No,
team's
all,
pretty.
all I'm going to throw in is I'm just going to go ahead and say real quick, if people are listening, not watching, our top five is the exact same. So it goes for both of us, Isaac, Logan, Carter, Grant, and Nixon. And so I don't have a whole lot to say on you either. I think you're the best team pretty clearly at this point. But we can just keep that in mind as we go. Our top five is the same: Isaac, Logan, Carter, Grant, Nixon.
And then we both have Logan at number two, 7-0. Guys performing across the board. My kind of only knock with him is just he lacks like that guy. Like comes to a playoff round, it's like, does he, maybe I'm on Rob, but outside of that, does he have anyone who's going to get him 32? And it's like, that's where I give myself the bump, like JSN, Gibbs, CD. Like, there's some guys who could just boom. And I feel like Logan's got guys who are doing well, but I don't know if he has those superstars.
Yeah, definitely agree, but I do like the depth he's working with. The fact that, Kyler Murray goes out for him and then he just puts DeAndre Swift in at Superflex who gets 20. He had, Keenan Allen on his bench this week, Michael Pittman, a 20-point scorer. We talked about the tight ends, so a ton of depth. Maybe I would look to consolidate a little more if I were him
Mhm.
into, one kind of stud. But we'll see if he does that because hasn't made a lot of moves yet. But great team. The depth is really outstanding for him.
Yeah, certainly. It's also tough, like who you consolidate with, because most of our tankers now lack players worth trading for. Chitty could be one door to knock on, could be interesting, although Chitty's known for striking a pretty hard bargain. So I'm just curious, maybe Logan just stands pat and likes what he's got, but I think he would certainly benefit from trying to make a move.
Hmm.
Then next, we both have you at three. It's exciting. You're going to get Lamar play for the first week here in a couple weeks. You're still doing well in the standings. That this big trade you made hasn't really done anything for you. CMC is doing great. Derrick Henry, hopefully going to look better with Lamar. Drake London. I think, a knock might be Michael Penix at quarterback versus Trevor Lawrence. I don't think either of those are elite options. And then your flex position, I feel like, BTJ is looking bad. You did just trade for Devontae Adams, but Puka should be back soon. And so that's kind of just my concern with your team is that flex spot. And then, of course, just waiting for Christian McCaffrey's ankle looked a little weird at practice type of thing.
Yeah, I'm worried about my flex. It's why I traded for Devontae, but I don't think he's a perfect solution. I just got really weak at receiver all of a sudden, which I guess I did trade Jamar Chase, so maybe that's on me. But that is a cause for concern. But I'm really happy with where I'm at. Like you said, Lamar's been out, Henry was out last week, and I've still been winning, so I'm happy about that.
And then we both have Grant at four. Grant's team is just in an interesting position because, right now he's rocking, going into next week, he's going to have rock Rasheed at the super flex. His quarterback room is weak. He's got Cam Ward, Jadir Sanders, and Malik Willis off the bench. So that's definitely a tough situation to be in. But even a great wide receiver, even if Rasheed puts up 17 a week, that's like mid quarterback play. And Caleb Williams has been kind of dropping the ball a lot recently. So I'd just be interested to see what he does. He's got Egbuka, Ted, Jamar, and Rasheed Rice. And you can really only play three wide receivers unless you put one in a super flex, which I think is inefficient. So I'm just curious to see, does he just stand pat? Is there a lot of really high value wide receivers? Or does he maybe try and make a move using one of those pieces? But I really like what he's doing to the team. Once he gets Hampton back, I think this is definitely someone to be reckoned with. It's just that quarterback super flex spot, I think, is weak for him.
Yeah, he's in a very weird spot. Obviously, a guy who I think we all think will be better come playoff time, but impressive, like I said, that he can still win with how he is right now. And yeah, I might, I don't think he will. You could say maybe look to make a move for running back because, like you said, he's got a bunch of receivers and he literally has two running backs, and one of them is Sean Tucker, who had one carry last week. But I think Grant has said he's very content with waiting around and Trey Benson's going to come back and Omari and Hampton's going to come back. So I don't think he's going to be in a rush. I think this is the time of year where you want to play Grant because the roster looks a little weird. But obviously, I think come playoff time, he's going to be a tough task.
And then we've got Nixon at five. Like we said, his quarterback room is pretty solid. Bo Nix and Josh Allen, of course. Devon Achane's been hooping. He's got a couple of the running backs like Kyron, Bill Krosky Merritt, David Montgomery that are kind of like week to week, who's good, who's not. None of them performed well this past week. Jordan Addison's looking like a stud, but that wide receiver room still is pretty poor. So certainly, I think kind of in maybe a second tier of contenders. Uh, got some weaknesses, but some strengths as well.
Yeah, not a lot to say on Nixon. It's the same story every week. Quarterbacks are great, receivers maybe getting better, but still not good.
And then we've got Drake, of course, at 3 and 4. But he's got Drake May, who's actually been just going off at the quarterback position, which is exciting. Bijan, who's a stud. Trey McBride, of course. Justin Jefferson's not been bad. He's just not been Justin Jefferson. It's a lot of Carson Wentz's fault, but that's interesting. Made that big move, and he's not been doing anything crazy. QJ as well since the trade has either been injured, on bye, or kind of underperforming. Like this last week, he only has two passes, and one of them happens to be a touchdown. But if he doesn't get that, he's looking at a serious dud of a week. So I genuinely like Drake's guys. I think Gino is just awful there in the superflex. A lot of underperforming and just maybe catching some unlucky breaks for Drake.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say real quick, you said we've got Drake. I have Drake at 7. I actually have
Oh, my
Austin
bad.
at 6. Austin at 6, a good bit higher than you. So we can talk about that in a second. But yeah, I moved Drake down 2 spots to 7. Um, I think it is tough for him. I think he'll get better because the team's just too talented not to. But I think there are a lot of holes. I mean, he can move James Cook in for Nick Chubb here. But then like you've still got Geno, like Mason Taylor. There's not a ton on the bench, I don't think, to take him out. Even if you take out Geno, which I think you have to at this point, it's like Flacco or Rodgers. How much do you trust them week to week? So I think Drake has a lot of holes. I think it's a very top heavy team, but I think there's a lot
Mhm.
behind that I think he kind of needs to solve, which is why I've bumped him 2 spots. Plus, he also keeps losing. A lot of talent, but I think he could do some tinkering with this roster because there are some definite things that he could work on.
Okay, let's so we each I guess you've got Austin at 6. Let's talk Austin. I've got Austin down all the way at 10. So let's talk Austin first.
Yeah, I can kind of just try and make the case for Austin here. I moved him up 3. He barely won. He scored 97, barely beat Charlie. He's 3-4, which in this league is actually a decent record. There's only 5 out of the 12 teams with winning records, so 3-4 could technically put you in that 6th slot. And I don't know. I just like a lot of the talent on Austin's team. I think we have to remember that eventually he has Bucky Irving coming back, which is going to make him much, much, much better. I like that, the Eagles seem to be throwing it a little bit again. I think you can't expect 33 from Devontae Smith every week, but I think you can expect a little more. I think generally his quarterbacks are going to play a little better than this in Jordan Love and Jared Goff. Pollard is fine on the bench. He's decent at tight end with Jawan Johnson and now Dalton Kincaid, who he's traded for. So I just like a lot of the talent on his team. T. Higgins had 20 on his bench. I can keep going. But I just think, when I look at a team like Drake's that's very flawed, and then after that, you kind of get into this tier of 1-6 teams slash tanking teams. I like a lot of Austin's talent. He won this week. I think he's definitely going to be a playoff team and is going to be pretty solid, which puts him right in this range.
Yeah, my thing I guess is I like his players. I don't love any of his players. Like I don't know if any of his skill position players are guys I'd want except for Bucky Irving anywhere beyond my flex position. Like I like Devontae Smith. I don't like him as your wide receiver one. I like him as a flex wide receiver. I like Juwan Jennings. I don't like him as wide receiver one, more as a flex. Alvin Kamara, Brees Hall. So that's kind of why I feel like he's going to be a guy who's maybe consistent, like guys who can put up points, but a consistent like 110. And not really any guys who I think are going to exceed that. Whereas I think Evan, Tyler, Charlie, who I have ranked ahead of him, have rosters that are more likely to put up more points.
Yeah,
Maybe a bit more uh, variable, but I think higher ceilings.
I mean, that was certainly the case this past week with Evan putting up 145. We're very different on Evan. We both have Tyler at 8. I don't know where you want to go next here.
Let's do Tyler at 8. So, like we said, definitely a needed victory this past week, which he didn't get. Um, this is a team where I think he's maybe run into an issue where he's trying to walk a line a little bit. Like he moved off Derrick Henry early in the season to you, and um, so he had this like young squad, but like he wasn't fully committed to contending, and that's really been biting him in the bum. So it just feels like every week, two of his guys just don't show up. Whether it's AJ Brown or Saquon or DK or Kid, like just every week something's not right. Joe Burrow going on IR really hurts as well. So this is a team where I think it's, like I think his squad's decent. Like Saquon, Warren, AJ Brown, Metcalf, Ferguson's like tight end one. He's been hooping. We all know, Dak's been playing really well. But it's just like is this a team you want to like go down with, right? Like, is this a team you want to like squeak into the playoffs and then next year all of them get way worse? Or do you just say, you know what, heck, this just isn't my year. I'm already 1-6. Let me run the race to the 101. So that's what I'd be curious with Chitty is like, is he gonna just stick this out? Or is he gonna say, I've already got a number of first round picks. Why don't I just start moving people and kind of commit to that? So uh, but right now I think the roster is pretty solid.
Yeah, I would definitely be trying to tank if I were Chitty, given that he's 1-6, and like you said, he's got an old roster. I don't think it's a championship roster. But I moved him up 3 spots to number 8 because as long as he's not tanking, I think the roster is just too good to not be in that spot. Like you said, or like I just said, a lot of these teams are very flawed. Chitty has mostly been putting up points every week. He's got a lot of talented guys. So would I look to tank if I were him? Yes. I probably would. But as long as he's not, I actually think it's a solid roster, a roster that almost beat me with 120 something points. He is second fewest in max PF right now. So that is just something to look at. If I were him, I would definitely look to tank. But right now, it's a roster that I think could beat anybody on any given week.
And
Well,
then we
maybe
both have
maybe not you. It maybe couldn't beat you. I think any given week it could beat pretty much anyone else.
appreciate. We both got Charlie at 9. I think great definition of a little top heavy. Curious to see what kind of direction he goes. He seems to be both a seller and a buyer this year. He's kind of been moving back and forth. Quarterback room is poor. Tua, Sam Darnold, Rattler, Brock Purdy. Like in theory, you could run Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy if they're both healthy, but is that something you really trust to rely on? JT looking like the offensive player of the year, which has definitely been helping his team out a lot. But Travis Etienne really fell off since he traded for him, which is really tough. JMO, of course, putting up a goose egg hurts. Lad's been up and down. He traded for Puka, waiting for Puka to come back from injury and the bye week. Ricky Pierce also got some injury issues. So I generally like what we're cooking here. I think with JT and Puka, if you had both those guys, it's like you could get 70 from them and it like wouldn't be insane. And then the rest of your guys don't have to do much for you to put up a really high score. So that's why I kind of have them higher. Um, I just think, it's going bad too fast. And I think he might just want to kick the can on this year. His stars are young. running back next year.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, he's 1-6, but he can move Puka into this Jamison Williams slot. It's interesting because he put Brock Purdy on the trade block this week, which I feel like Brock Purdy is actually a guy that he very much needs. So I was interested to see that. Almost no depth behind Puka that I can really see, but like you said, with those two guys, I think he's pretty solid. I don't know. I think Charlie can do whatever here. I could see him trying to make a move and trying to make a big three with JT, Puka, and someone else. He's got 3 first-round picks to do it, and I actually think that would be a pretty scary team. I could also see him being 1-6 and saying, "All right, you know what? Let's tear it down." Curious to see where he goes because it's an interesting situation.
He does have his pick and TJ's pick. So like there's a very real scenario where he could have like the 101 and the 102, which I think would be insane. So that would be my suggestion for tanking is like you could get some studs and have like actually a legit terrifying squad coming out. You don't have to upgrade at that quarterback position. Let's talk Evan now. So I have Evan at 7, coming up 5 spots. First time he's been out of the bottom, and here he really got out of the bottom. You've got Evan at 10. My argument for it is he's had back-to-back, like pretty high scoring weeks. Of course, he had 145 this week, but last week he put up if I can see here. I guess not super high, 94, but he did beat TJ. So he's got 2 wins in a row. His first two, or okay, he didn't beat me, but he should have beat me. He should be 2-5 after putting up the second most points. But I'm just kind of liking what he's cooking. Mahomes is and Dart, like actually kind of an insane quarterback room. A lot of the contenders would love to have those two guys. Replacement Romo Dunze didn't have a great week, but in general has like a solid wide receiver one. Chris Olave, like you mentioned, starting to get some points put up. Judkins is a stud. So I'm just liking a lot of what he's doing, and it just feels like he's an any given Sunday type of guy. If Brock Bowers came back healthy, this would actually be a team I'd be not wanting to face in like a first round playoff matchup, just because it's like, is Jackson Dart going to run for 2 touchdowns and put up an insane amount of points? Is Quinshon Judkins playing the freaking Bengals again this week and going to just run all over them? So I kind of like what Evan's cooking here. I think maybe he's too far gone. He's wanting to tank, but I really like the squad. I think this is a team not to be messed with moving forward.
Yeah, that's really what it is for me. So you have him at 7. I have him down at 10. I did move him up 2 spots to 10. I think I just need to see it again. Like you said, he did put up just 94 the week before. A lot of talent, but he's 1-6. I don't know how much he wants to win, so it's hard for me to put him any higher than 10 right now. I don't know. I think it's funny. Patrick Mahomes, Jackson Dart, that exact same vibes as Nixon's quarterback duo. Like they just
Hmm.
totally remind me of each other, which I think is funny. I think some of these guys overperformed this week. Like as much as I'm happy for Olave, I don't know that he's going to do quite that well every week. Jackson Dart, 29 seems like a lot to hope for, but I think a lot of talent. He did this without Brock Bowers, which is impressive. I think I should just see one more week of it before I totally skyrocket him up. But I did move him up 2 spots to number 10.
And then we both have Tucker at 11. Again, Tucker's, calling it quits on this season, looking towards the future. Some solid dudes in here, like Waldo is going to be wide receiver one whenever they find out to replace Tua. Garrett Wilson, of course, is solid. Herbert and Daniel Jones looking like a quarterback room for the future. He's got guys moving forward, just not guys for this year. Mike Evans out for injury, I think really hurts. I know who's trying to move that to a contender for a pick, and with Evans being out for the season, and who knows what's coming next. I think that's just uh, a loss of value there. But other than that, I don't think there's much to say about Tucker.
Yeah, Tucker reached out to me multiple times on Mike Evans. Tucker has, I want to check this. Tucker has the lowest max PF in the league so far. So right now, even though he's 3-4, he's in a good spot if he wants to tank. And TJ, who I think is his biggest competition, even though TJ doesn't have his first round pick, TJ is actually sixth right now in max PF. Because remember, he was so good early in the season. So Tucker's in a really good spot right now, and I don't think this roster is good. So I think Tucker is right where he wants to be.
Yeah, he just needs to get out of the playoffs. 3-4 record right now. I think he's sitting as the 7 seed. Or Okay, I guess he's at the 9, but he's tied records with the Drake and Austin. So just he needs to stack up a few more losses, but I don't think that should be difficult for him. And finally, we've got both of TJ at 12 here. He did win this week, which is just uh, gotta be tough in the locker room. Um, moved. Let's see. He moved for CJ Stroud, moved off of Jordan Love, and Zay Flowers got another first round pick, couple of seconds. CJ Stroud. But yeah, other than that, this team just kind of lacks a building block. Like Travis Hunter looked good, but he's not like a guy that you're like, okay, I've got like a stud. A Justin Fields situation is super concerning. So he's definitely a wake us up in 2029 type of guy. But he does have a bunch of picks, a bunch of firsts. He's just going to want to be active any week. Who's hooping? Who could I trade for a second, a third? Who can I get off of moving forward?
Yeah, I don't know how much we talked about that Jordan Love trade. I think it's really interesting. I kind of just, I mean, just immediately looking at it, I kind of like what TJ got. CJ Stroud, a first, a second for Jordan Love, who I'm not sure is that much better than CJ Stroud and Zay Flowers. I think that's a fine trade. But yeah, this roster is just really tough. I think it's kind of hilarious that TJ couldn't win early in the year when he had this stacked roster, and now his roster is buns and he beats Drake. It's just like, of course, it figures.
Yeah,
But this roster is really, really bad, and it stinks that he doesn't have his first round pick. He's done a fine job of getting a lot of assets, but really wish he had his own pick because he's done a great job of making this team bad. Now he just needs the pick to go with it, and he doesn't have it. So,
yeah,
curious to see if he can get that back at some point. Yeah, I know he won, but I think it is the worst roster in the league at this point, and I think I feel good about us both having him at 12 right now.
yeah. One other thing that I just think is interesting is I believe this is our halfway point through our fantasy regular season. I think the playoffs start in week 15. So it may seem like we're super deep in the playoffs and or into the season, and you know 7 games left, trying to make up 2 or 3 wins is a lot, but it is still 7 games left. Like Evan could easily, like, let's say Evan's team keeps doing this and he goes 5-2, like that's playoffs, so it's interesting to think like some of these teams that are at the bottom are like, if I had a couple injuries, like I could drop really far and not maybe out of the playoffs, but it's just, we are only halfway through the season. A lot can change in fantasy. So for teams on the outside looking in, no need to panic. But if you're really on the outside, like a Chitty, then maybe you want to start thinking like, all right, I got 7 games to win 3 extra games over some of these teams. How am I going to get that done? So
Yeah, we've got 6 minutes left, so let's try and go through these picks pretty quick
golly.
here. I
Yeah,
am 26 and 10. You are 25 and 11.
both of us went 4-2 last week. So we've got Grant versus TJ first. I think this is not quite hydrogen bomb coughing baby, but close to it. Um, I'm not sure if there's much to say here.
No, the only thing I would say is I think it's funny you called you and Evan hydrogen bomb coughing baby last week. It was actually hydrogen bomb versus slightly weaker hydrogen bomb, but this is hydrogen bomb coughing baby. Grant takes this one.
Drake versus Will. Nixon getting back Josh Allen, which is exciting. Drake definitely in need for a W. You went with Nixon here because of some of the guys he's getting back. I went with Nixon as well. So I think we both think Drake's kind of real is going to continue. One thing that does concern me though is this is Bijan versus the Dolphins. He could literally run all over them.
He could, yeah. I think, like I said, Drake has some things I think he needs to solve. I like Nixon's team getting Josh Allen back.
You versus me. You went with me here. I actually went with you, so that's kind of cute of us. My reasoning is I've got Gibbs and JSN on bye. So like my our 2 best players are on bye. Also, Jaden Daniels is questionable, and I don't really have any other quarterbacks who are playing to sub in. So I just think just not my week.
Yeah.
I kind of see
I
this over
hate
the
this because this is America's game of the week, but we are not coming in at full strength. I think what this is we just look at our own teams more because I looked at me and I have some things that are worrying this week. I have Brian Thomas Jr., who's just okay, and Devontae Adams on bye, and I'm weak at receiver. So right now I have Calvin Ridley in, who's bad and questionable. Lamar probably will play, but we're not sure. I have Ramondre in right now, so we're both not coming in at full strength. I think your team's better, but this one could go either way.
And then Austin versus Evan. You went with Austin here. I went with Evan. I think this is more just our how we're ranking philosophies. You're higher on Austin's team. I'm higher on Evan's team. I'm not sure if there's anything specific you want to say.
No, Austin might get Buggy back, which I like. I also like some of the matchups. Brees against Cincinnati. I think the Eagles could be in for a big Devontae Smith revenge game against the Giants. But this one could go either way. Yeah, I've been hyping up Austin's team. I got to go with them.
Then Tucker versus Char, both went with Char again, just kind of a team philosophy. We Tucker's tanking. Char's got JT. I think he could be getting Puka back this week if he wanted to play him. So, or maybe it's next week. But I just think Charlie is more interested in winning right now than Tucker is.
I agree.
And then finally, Logan versus Tyler. You went with Tyler here. I went with Logan. Like we said, Tyler really needs to start stacking up wins if he wants to be taken seriously this season. But I just don't see it this week. Logan 7-0. He does have Amon Ra out, but he's just got so much depth. So much depth going down the roster in the wide receiver spot. So I think he's gonna be able to fill that hole just fine.
The reason I'm going with Tyler, so yeah, we have three picks that are different this week, a little more than usual. I just think Tyler, which this isn't logical, but Tyler does need this win. He's coming in pretty much at full strength, including again, I think Saquon, AJ Brown could have big games against the Giants. Logan has Kyler Murray out and Amon Ra out. So I know he's got the depth, but he's not going to have a second quarterback. He's going to have to be kind of mixing and matching. So give me a Tyler team that's pretty much at full strength, that needs this win, and is a pretty consistent 120 most weeks. With the guys Logan has out, I think that could be a tough number to hit this week.
Hmm.
Real
Lastly
quick, I just want to give
here.
a shout out to my brother Drake Bass. We have 2 minutes left, but he made me laugh this week. He changed Drake May's name to Drake May, which I just found humorous. So Drake, shout out, good nickname. I've been bad with nicknames in the past, and you've inspired me to be better. So thank you.
Oops, that is it for today.
That's it. Thank you all so much for watching episode 14 of the Mousetrap. We'll have a chopped episode out, I imagine, tonight. 1 minute and 48 seconds left. Isaac, feel like we kept the energy up a little better. I hope. I hope you all enjoyed. Is there anything you want to say to our league members and brothers before we depart?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, drop it in the comments. How was our energy this morning? This is we literally wake up and do this, so yeah, it's tough, but we try.
We try in 3 podcasts this week as well. I'm not trying to be like, oh, my life is so hard, but it's been a week, so 2/3 of the way through. But yeah, hopefully we kept the energy up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Only halfway through the season. It's still anyone's ball game. Excited to see how it goes. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see y'all in the next one.